Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining me. Before we even move any further, I'd love to know if you can hear me. Can you type in the chat if you can hear me right now? Yep. Okay. Thank you, Kayla. I appreciate it. Kevin, thank you. Thank you. Oh, so nice to see you again. So we have Barb. Thank you, Barb. So we have Stuart. Hi, Stuart. We had an interesting thing happen today. Fun fact, did you know that the spring back, fall back, spring forward, that happens at different times depending on where you are in the world. So I'm in Europe right now, and we had our time change this past Sunday, and apparently in the States you have it this Sunday. So anyways, we're an hour off. I still have a good number of you here with me, so thank you so much for making it. And then for the people who are watching this later, I will send you a replay. First, I would love to know where you're coming from. We have someone here also over in my area in the UK. Someone's coming to us from New Zealand. Super exciting. Stuart, I think you're in Philadelphia, aren't you? Ontario, Canada, yes. Orange County, Colorado. Oh, good. Okay, perfect. Oregon, Fire Island. I don't know where that is. Toronto, whoop, whoop. Maryland, Netherlands, beautiful, wonderful. Okay, great. I think a good number of you were here with me last time. Hello from Houston, but on vacation in Alabama right now. Awesome. Alabama sounds great. So I want to give you a little tour of Crowdcast. You seem to have found the chat. It's in the right-hand side there. I also welcome you. Hello, Ruth in Switzerland. I also welcome you to leave me questions. So down towards the bottom of the screen, there's an ask a question area. Definitely leave your questions in there, because if you leave them in the chat, then they end up getting lost in the comments. So if you have a question for me, if you think of one while we're going, just leave it in there. You can also upvote other people's questions. Yeah. Also, there's a poll. I will share the results with you. Let's see. Did you attend last week's class? Yes, most of you did, or you watched the replay. There was a couple of you who said, was there a class last week? So I will explain that quickly for anyone. Oh, and the votes are changing. Okay, good. I'm doing a 4-week series. We are talking everything you need to know about building your website from start to finish, basically over the course of the 4 weeks. So there was a class last week. If you want to watch the replay, you can, if you're on Crowdcast right now with me, you can click on my face, my little icon, and you can see the past events that I've had, and you can watch the replay there. For those of you who joined me last week, I don't want to really cover too much that we went over last week, because I don't want to waste any of your time. So there's just one thing we're going to do today, which I'll go through really quickly, that we did last week, and then we're on to all new content. Yeah. And then I also asked you what you struggle most with. Memphis? Oh, Minneapolis. That's what that is. Okay, good. I struggle most with figuring out how to arrange and organize content on my pages is the highest vote, which is great, because that's what we're talking about today. Coming in second is figuring out how to write in a way that connects with your ideal visitor. I totally know the struggle. And then figuring out how to get started with building your website. Awesome. And then a few of you struggle with all the things. So great. Okay. So let me see. The last thing I need to remind you of before we actually get into the content today is there is a workbook that goes along with this. Some of you may have printed it out. It looks like so. If you click the button below this video, there's a big green download workbook icon. Click on that, you'll get the workbook, and then we can type it all in there. Okay, so let's go ahead and okay, perfect. So I'm going to switch over to my slides here. So today we are talking all about step-by-step site organization strategy. So you are in the right place today. If you are a little bit clueless with deciding what to put where on your website, if you don't know where anything goes or how you make those decisions, then you're definitely in the right place today. You're in the right place if you're getting stuck deciding what links should go in your navigation, what information should go on each page, and what order all of that information should go in. Second. Good. Sorry, just had to manage the chat there for a second. All right. And then you are in the right place. If you don't just want a pretty website, but you really want a website that actually connects and converts with your ideal customers and turns them into raving fans and buyers, because I did a poll last week and it looks like the vast majority of you are business owners. And so of course, running a business, we need to get people, to buy from you. So if we've never met before, my name is Paige. I am a full-time Squarespace website designer. I like to call myself a semi-pro napper because I take impressive 3-hour naps. I have been a Squarespace pro for a company called Hello Compass, a Squarespace expert for U60, and I never really gave myself a title at my own job until I had to make this slide, but I'm going to call myself a Squarespace designer extraordinaire for my own studio at the Page Studio. I have created the go-to destination now for Squarespace content on the webs. Most of you probably met me through my blog. And so these are some of the kind things that some of my wonderful past clients have said for me. Now, I have built over 40 websites, and in that time, I have gotten a really honed strategy down to knock these things out quickly and to create a unique website every single time. And that's what we're going through today. Every website is slightly different, of course, depending on what type of business you run. But there are some principles and some things in terms of like organization that are the same throughout all the websites that all of you are creating. So let's go into what you're going to learn today. Quickly, again, this is the thing that we covered last week, so I'm going to fly through this really this week, is we're going to determine what your ideal client is looking for on your website, and then we're going to go straight into how to create a clear and direct roadmap through your website, and we're going to really talk about why making this roadmap actually matters, because I want you to do work that actually has purpose to it. I'm not just giving you work just for fun of it. Creating a roadmap through your website will really help with actually getting people to take the action that we want to on our websites. Then I have some page content planners for you. Those are both in your workbook, so you don't have to stress too much about writing them down or anything because they're in their workbook for you. And then we'll also go through them, and I'll give you a bit more detail on some of them because some of them might need a bit of explanation for you. Then I'm going to tell you everything that you need to know about calls to action. Calls to action are super important on your website, but this is something that I find in a lot of people who are building a website for the first time. They kind of neglect this, so it's something that I really want to go into with you and show you the importance of it. And then we're also going to decide, and I saw we had a question in the questions about this, how to determine what makes it into your top navigation, your main navigation, and then what things you should be putting lower down, like through links on your page or through your footer area. Okay, and then at the very end, we will have a question time. So if you have a question that you think of throughout, just feel free to leave it in the questions below. And lastly, of course, if you haven't gotten it, please do download that workbook because you'll definitely actually need it for this. Okay, now if you're unfamiliar, some of you are, some of you aren't. This webinar is one of many. Last week, we went into creating a real foundation for your website, creating a site building game plan. And then this week, we're talking about the site organization strategy. Next week, we are back same time. And so the time will have changed in the States. So it will actually be 2 p.m. Eastern. We're going to go through how to pick a Squarespace template. I know this is a question I get all the time. And I have a really clear strategy, which is going to, like every single one of you, by the time you leave there, are going to know which template makes the most sense for your website and for your needs. Then the week after that, on the 15th, also at 2 p.m. Eastern, we're going to be doing a Squarespace lesson. So I'm going to take you through the back end of a Squarespace website and show you all around it. And so, excuse me, to register for all of those, check your email, or if you're on Crowdcast with me, you can, again, click my face, click my little icon, and then you will head to my profile and you can see all the upcoming events I have. You can just register yourself right there as well. And for anyone who is watching this in the future, you can head to this link right there, bit.ly/TPSYT. That will take you to my YouTube, and I'll put all the replays up over there. Keep in mind, you do need to type that in caps, otherwise you won't actually, you'll go to some other YouTube channel if you do it lowercase. So yeah. Alrighty, so the first thing that I want to get into today is what is a content layout strategy and why do you need one? I think that's a very important place to start here. So let's actually figure out what this is. So With a content layout strategy, you'll be able to easily answer these questions. So what goes in your navigation? What content should go on each page? What your calls to action should be, and where you should place those opt-in gifts. And of course, most importantly, once you have this strategy nailed down, it's going to be really easy for you to get visitors to the pages that bring in the money to your business. You'll also, thankfully, completely eliminate the analysis paralysis of trying to decide what to put where when you're actually building. And this leads to a much faster building process. So while it might feel like, oh, I have to do all this like pre-work beforehand, this is actually going to make the whole thing go a lot quicker later on. So it's definitely worth your time. Okay, now content layout strategy, you might be thinking, sounds a little bit complex. But to be honest, we can do this super easily with just some sticky notes, piece of paper, a pen, or the other option, and I'll show you an example of this, is using Canva. It's a free online, kind of like Photoshop, but simpler, a free online software. And you can also use that to create your content layout strategy. So first things first, we need to know what people are actually going to be looking for on your website, and then we can work through all the other steps. So let's get into that part first. So in other words, what I'm saying, what's the most important information? What do your ideal clients or customers need to know before buying or visiting you if you're a physical location or inquiring with you? So I'm going to give you 2 examples here. So first example is, say you run a coffee shop. The most important things that I need to know if I'm thinking about coming to your coffee shop, I Googled coffee shop, is 1, your location. You're a location-specific business, so I need to know how close you are to me and how exactly I get from my apartment to your coffee shop. The second thing I need to know are what hours do you have? If I like working late until 11 or 12, are you open that late? That's important to a lot of people. And then specific to a coffee shop, if you have Wi-Fi is actually pretty important. So definitely those are the 3 things that people are probably looking for on your website. Now, say if you're a wedding dress designer, that is completely different business. So the things people are looking for is going to be different. So the first thing I would want to see on, if you're a custom wedding dress designer, is I want to see a gallery of your past work. Like, do you fit my style? Do I like your designs? Then after that, I need to know, okay, are you within my budget? Are you within my price range? So if I have $2,000 to spend and your dresses cost 20, then it's probably not worth me getting in touch because it won't make much sense for either of us. It's just kind of a waste of time for both of us. Then the last thing the second last thing I want to know is the process and the timeline. So if I'm getting married 3 months from now, are you able to meet that deadline? Or is this something where I need to order it like a year in advance? And then the last thing, assuming all those other bits check out, is how do I inquire, or how do I actually place an order with you? What is the next step? So if you haven't already in last class, then definitely write this down in your workbook. I want you to think about your own business and what are the most important things that people need to know on your website before they actually get in touch with you. So how to create a roadmap through your website. So if you want to break it down easily, the less fancy term, if you want a content layout strategy, basically equals a roadmap, if you want to make things simple. So there are many ways to get to Starbucks. However, some routes are more efficient and faster than others. If I gave you directions to Starbucks and I sent you through a whole bunch of traffic and a bunch of construction sites and everything, it's going to be kind of frustrating for you to try and get there. So it would actually be a lot better if I gave you the most efficient and fastest way to get there. So again, similar to our website, the fastest and most efficiently we can get our visitors from the page they land on, maybe it's a blog post, maybe it's your homepage, to their final destination, the better. It means the higher chance that they're actually going to get in touch with you, really. So step 1 for this, I'm going to take up my workbook. Okay, step 1 is to write out your route. So I want you to think through what route makes the most sense. What pages do they need to see along the way before they're actually going to get in touch with you? So, for example, let's say this kind of works for a web designer, actually, so we'll use me as an example. People maybe land on my homepage. They Google Squarespace website designer. They land on my homepage. The first thing they're going to want to see is her work decent? So then they're going to want to go to my portfolio page. Then they're probably going to want to go to like my pricing or my work with me or services page, whatever you call that, information page maybe. Just a tip with your navigation titles, make them really like clear and obvious. Don't try to get too fancy with your navigation titles because it just gets confusing. So likely next is like the pricing or the information page. And then lastly, some people, it depends, there's no right or wrong to this. Some people have a contact page, so they'll direct you from the work with me or the services page or the pricing page to the contact page. Other people will put a contact form at the bottom of that page. There is no wrong answer really. It just depends on your business. So you get to make that decision really. So that is an example of a route going through the pages. So definitely write that down in your workbook there. Now, step number 2. I want you to, there's again 2 options. I'll show you the low-tech version right now, and then we can go into the high-tech version after. So I want you to label the top of a piece of paper with the name of your pages that are in your roadmap. So say this one is my home page. I would write home on the very top of that sheet of paper. So say we're doing the roadmap that I just gave an example of, you would need 4 sheets of paper for this. And then you want to arrange them left to right from the beginning of the route to the end of the route on maybe your desk, whatever you're sitting at right now. And then step number 3, write content on some sticky notes. So examples of content would be your prices, your packages or your services, your availability, maybe a blog post preview or testimonials, maybe the process that you do things in, maybe your full about area, or maybe just like a little snippet of your about area, and maybe an opt-in gift. Those are just a few examples of types of content that you might have on your pages. So I want you to write those bits of content. You don't need to write like the actual content, just write sort of like the title of that bit of content on your sticky note. And then you will place the notes onto your pages and arrange them in the order of what content should come first, second, third, basically going down the page. Now, the reason I say sticky notes, honestly, you could just use a pen, but I find sticky notes are really great because then if you start arranging things and then you determine, no, I don't really like that there, I'd like to like switch this around or whatever, it gets really easy and you're not making like a giant messy page. Your sticky notes are really easy just to pick up and place different places on the page. So that's why I say sticky notes. So honestly, you could just use a pen if you need to, depending on what materials you have at your disposal right now. Okay, pro tip for this. It is absolutely acceptable to have your important information in more than one place. So say you're a location-specific business. It would make sense to have your location on your homepage, then again in your footer, then again on your contact page, and maybe even another page if it makes sense, depending on what pages you have on your site. So yeah, important information can definitely be on your content roadmap more than one time. That's totally acceptable. Same thing, contact info is a common one, which is really important, or maybe like information about your packages. That could be on multiple pages too. So I'm going to let you steal my content page planners. So let's go through the 3 most important pages and what content should be going on each one. So if you're asking the question, what content should go on each page, this is definitely going to help you. So here, oh yeah, there we go. I'm getting ahead of my slides. Here's the content for each in a recommended order. So on your homepage, the first thing I want you to have up there is your tagline. And so your tagline consists of what you do, who you do it for, the location you serve, or if you're a location, where you are, if you're a location-specific business, how you're different, and a call to action. So I know for most of you, this is probably your first time you'll be doing this. People kind of avoid the tagline. They don't really know how to make one, but this honestly is like the complete recipe. It's just those few things right there. Now I have to say, when you go to make your tagline, you only need to put in the information that makes sense for you. So for example, I'm not a location-specific business. I'm currently in Europe, but the vast majority of the time I help people in the States. So honestly, I've had clients who have been all around the world. So I don't have my location in my tagline. Then, sorry, I'm reading comments. So distracting. So yeah, so what you do, who you do it for. If you have like a certain type of person, say you help creative entrepreneurs, or if you're a wedding dress designer, newly engaged brides. or yeah, those are all the examples I can think of. So those are the pieces of your tagline. The thing that I'd like you to put after that, coming below your tagline, is a call to action. So a call to action, if you have an opt-in gift, this is the perfect place to put it. It honestly can go in multiple places, but putting it right there would be wonderful. Then I'd like you to give some quick details about whatever services it are that you offer or packages that you offer, and then a call to action going towards those things. So instead of putting all of the information about your packages or your services, just do like, we help blah, 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 whatever type of person you help buy or with, and then like branding, web design, copywriting. And so just put the names, the titles of those things. Maybe you could have a graphic or an icon that goes along with those, and then put one or multiple, depending on if those are on. Say if you have 3 different pages for those 3 different services, at the bottom, put a button that leads to those 3 places. Or if it's all on one page, then just one call to action button going towards those services. Then I'd love if you have any testimonials or social proof. This is the perfect place to put it. So what do I mean by social proof? Say you've been featured in the New York Times. That would be super exciting. Then that shows you're pretty legit if you've been featured in the New York Times. So taking that logo and putting it as seen in the New York Times would make you look really credible and trustworthy. So you can do social proof in 2 ways, either having logos of any publications or news you've been featured in, or putting testimonials. That also works really well. And then last thing, another call to action to whatever page you want people to go to most. Whatever page is the second in your roadmap, that's the next one. That's the call to action you want to put there. Okay, then on your about page. The about page a lot of people struggle with because they feel it's really awkward and uncomfortable because they go, oh, it's really difficult to talk about myself. But to be honest, it's actually not as bad as you think because you're not talking so much about yourself as you are about the people that you help and how you help them. So hopefully that makes it a little bit less scary to actually write this thing. So the very top of the page, you want to talk about who your ideal visitor is and what their issues are. So kind of making me feel like I'm in the right place. So at the beginning of my about page, you can go to mine if you sort of want to see this in action. I talk about, do you feel like this when it comes to building, or no, I make a statement about how you feel building a website, kind of like clueless and confused and everything. And then I go into like, okay, well, perfect. I'm here to help with that. And then I actually introduce myself. And then I tie that back into why I help people with what I do, and how I actually go about doing that. So again, beginning, not an autobiography, says Larry. Yes, correct. It's really more about the people you're serving than it is about yourself, which is kind of weird and sort of a backwards way of thinking about it, but it really truly is. So yeah, about your ideal visitor, their issues, then tie it back into yourself, how you relate, how you help those people. And then you can tie that into your offerings. So then you can say, I help people buy, and then maybe your different services. And then you can link out and put calls to action to go to those different service pages. Another thing which is also nice to have on your about page is testimonials, or another form of social proof. So people do one of 2 things. They'll either sprinkle testimonials throughout their website, or they have like a specific page, or they'll do a mix of both. So having testimonials, if you have some really fabulous testimonials about yourself, leaving one on your about page, letting other people speak for you is a wonderful thing to do. Oftentimes there are frequently asked questions on about pages. So it is, if you don't have an FAQ page, people sometimes expect it to be on the about page. So that would make sense there as well. And then a call to action, because we end every page with a call to action to your services or to your contact page. One last thing, which I actually didn't put on the slide, but on my about page, pretty sure, I have an opt-in area, and that actually works really well. So also maybe putting an opt-in area, if people have met you, they think, oh yeah, they sound great. You can put an opt-in area, and then they can subscribe to hear more from you in the future. So yeah, that's also one thing which you could place on there as well. I would put that again towards the bottom. The top bit is really talking about your ideal client, how you help them, and then relates to your services. So below that, I would say, if you're going to do the opt-in. Okay, and then your services page. So Services page should be set up like so. You want to talk about the problem that your services help to solve. So again, as a website designer, I feel like I should give a different example. Let's say you're a copywriter. Say you could say something like, does your website sound nothing like you? Okay, perfect. And then you would go into a little bit about your service. So I'm a copywriter and I help people by XYZ. And what life would look like after you've worked with them, or after they've worked with you, sorry. When you list this information, though, I would really suggest that you put it in bullet points as opposed to putting it as one big giant paragraph of text, because honestly, people might read full sentences now, but they definitely don't read paragraphs anymore, unfortunately. So if you can bullet point that information, this is what life would be like after you've used this service, that would be fantastic. Then after that, you would want to introduce your services. So you would say what your services are and maybe the details of those services, or if you have different packages, you could place them all out side by side there. Then below that, and now this bit relates specifically to what you do. So maybe explaining the process of working with you. If you can, now every industry, if you can break what you do down into 3 simple steps, now I realize that most things do not happen in 3 simple steps, but if you can break it down into like 3 general categories of like when things happen, that's really nice to put on your services page. So even something like web design, which involves a lot of steps, many, many steps. I've still broken it down into like inquiring, booking, and then building the site and launching, I think. No, inquiring and booking, building the site, and then launching it. Those are my 3 steps, I'm pretty sure. So yeah. Any other important details? For example, for me, I have a design calendar saying my availability. So if you have anything like that, anything that's specific to your type of business, important details that they need to know before booking with you, that also should go right there. Then I would put in your pricing with at the bottom of each of your, say you have 3 packages, at the bottom of each, there should be a button, call to action for whatever they need to do after they decide, yes, she sounds great and I want to work with them. Below that, if they're not already sold on working with you, it's good to put some testimonials or talk about what makes you different in your industry. So if they're not already sold, hopefully by that time they get down there, they're still thinking about it. They're not quite sure. They haven't clicked on the calls to action yet. These are the things that could really drive it home. Also, I've seen people put a charity on here, and I have to say that really did get me once when I bought something after I've read the charity bit, and I was like, oh, that's so nice. Then I purchased the thing. Then call to action again to actually whatever the next step is, and then frequently asked questions at the bottom. When you do this FAQ, I want to be clear. So on your about page, it would be more like FAQ about your business. On this page, it would be FAQ about that specific service or package, whatever that services page is selling. So it wouldn't be like all the FAQs, it would just be FAQs about whatever that service is. Okay, so I'm not gonna have you share that in the chat because that would just take absolutely forever, but do write that in your workbook. I hope you've been writing that in your workbook as I was talking there. So next thing we need to get to is calls to action. Super exciting topic, honestly. So let's see. Do's and don'ts of calls to action. Do have multiple calls to action per page. Now, I know some people, they're kind of, is that too much? Nope, make it loud and proud and right in their face what you want them to do next on your website. Similarly, yes, it is totally acceptable to have duplicate calls to action on your page. You can do it one of 2 ways. You can have literally the exact same text, the exact same looking button as a call to action, or you could have the buttons linked to the same place but have different text on them. Both are totally fine. Make them big, bold, and in your face, and a color hopefully that maybe stands out from the rest of your website a little bit. And then use your voice for the text instead of the typical learn more. So I think on my homepage, I have a very casual voice in person, and then on my website, it translates through. So I think I have like more deets this way, which of course, hopefully, you know, means more details this way. My ideal client, they would understand that slang, so I can use it on my website. So you don't need to just stick to learn more. You can totally use your authentic voice, whatever makes sense for your brand on those calls to action. as well as through your entire website. Now, some things which I would advise against: don't feel pushy. These things are really necessary. Otherwise, our people are left thinking, what should I do next? So don't feel pushy. Just if you're not sure, throw on another one and you've probably got enough. So yeah. Also, don't use text links. A button is a lot more noticeable than a text link. And I'm going to show you some examples to show you really how different calls to action could be depending on how you design them. The design of them really can affect a lot how effective they really are. So the bad. I'm working on a website. I was working on this earlier today. And so you can see, hopefully, well, it's kind of hard to see, which is kind of the point. Towards the bottom of that paragraph of text, this is a wedding venue. And so the thing that we want people to do is to schedule a tour with them. So at the very end of that paragraph of text, I have a text link, slightly different color, and it says schedule a tour. But honestly, it's not very noticeable, so probably wouldn't be too effective. The better version of this is if we had a button instead of that text link. You can probably tell, a lot more noticeable in this situation. And then the best version, now you can't really tell because you can't see a screenshot of the entire website, but this is a section that comes below that section. So it is a lot of negative space happening, just a background image, and then two buttons. To be honest, those two buttons, they go to the exact same page. So one says contact us, one says schedule a tour time. They both go to the same page because both of those things are on the same page. Excuse me. So you can tell if you are scrolling down the page, what are the chances that you're going to stop and notice the text link over this? You're probably going to notice this more. So really think about the design of your calls to action, not just having a link, but really making them actually noticeable is also really going to change how effective they are. Okay, now which page needs a call to action? Every single page. I should have done that as like a poll or something just to see what you think. Pop quiz time. Every page on your website needs a call to action. Every single one. When we're doing more on the roadmap, I'll get a little bit more into that. But basically, every page, every single one needs a call to action on it. Now, why? We don't ever want our visitor to get to the bottom of a page and then think, okay, so where should I go next? And then maybe you have a sticky navigation so it's easy to click, or maybe they have to scroll all the way back up the page again. But then we're giving them the choice of where they go next. And we really want to direct them to we know our website better than they know the website. We know the website backwards and forwards. We know all the pages and all the options, whereas they don't know it so well. So we are basically telling them what makes sense after that page. So when you're designing, you have to think about, okay, this is the page you're on. This is probably the stage that they're in and deciding to work with me. What makes sense after this? So think of the logical next step, add a call to action button on the bottom of the page. You can have them throughout the page but definitely always one at the bottom saying where is the next place to go. Fun fact, calls to action goes not just for the pages of your website, but also your blog posts. So at the end of all of my blog posts, and I've seen this on many, many other bloggers, they put related posts. So that's basically a call to action to keep you on their blog and to increase the amount of time that you're spending reading their content. Or you could put a call to action if you write a blog post of something related to your business, which I hope you're blogging related to your business. A call to action going to your services page would make a lot of sense. Same thing goes for social media posts or YouTube videos or even podcasts. At the end, you always want to give people something to do. So yeah, calls to action should be where. So your next step, if you have finished up your content planners, or when you finish them up after this, you want to take a sticky note and place it at the bottom, or just if you're using a pen, just circle it or something. You want to write CTA and then an arrow and then whatever page makes sense after that. So yeah, call to action at the bottom of every single page. And again, you can have them throughout if you want to as well. So step number five. Deciding what links make it into your top navigation. This is not an easy one. And this is something kind of counterintuitive. So a lot of people, it doesn't make sense at first hearing it. But once I explain it, hopefully it makes a bit more sense as to why we're doing this. So you get at maximum 5 links that you're allowed having in your top navigation, and less is absolutely more. So why is this the case? Remember 10 years ago when you went on websites and then they had all the things at the top, and then they had all the drop downs with like 50 options, and people would go on websites and just go, I have no clue, and it was just too many decisions to make, and they would make no decision, and they would hit the back button or the X button and just leave the website. So if we are really strategic about this, we can pick what makes the most sense for them when they first get to the website and just put those things up at the top. So what gets the top spots, and what goes in the footer, and then what links go within the content of your page? So I want you to think back to your site goals, and maybe also to your roadmap. What pages helps get your ideal visitor to whatever your end goal is for your website? What pages help them do that? Those are the pages that make it into the top. All the sort of like accessory things, like say the testimonials and the frequently asked questions, and all, maybe even your about page, they're not always the most important things. So those are examples of ones that would likely end up going in your footer. Whereas things like contact services, contact services, portfolio, or gallery are probably the things that are going to be up in the top there. So again, it depends on the type of website that you're building, but those are examples there for you. So why this works, I already covered this. I'm getting ahead of my slides again. Minimizes decisions, and it kills the analysis paralysis, or there is no analysis paralysis, because we basically made the decision for them. So examples. This is Squarespace. Squarespace literally has hundreds of pages on their website, but if you look on their homepage, it's super minimalistic and clean, and they really just have a few things on there. So they have a button in the top right that says Get Started. And so that will take you to the templates page to start picking your template, because that's the first step in building your website. And then they also have something that says Start a Free Trial. And so Get Started and Start a Free Trial take you to the exact same place. So that's another example of like, you can have different text on buttons, but they can actually just go to the same place. And then the other two options that they have are the login. You'll notice, so that's for like current customers who have already purchased a Squarespace plan with them or started building a website with them. So that's convenient for all the people who are already with them, but the buttons that they're using as opposed to just the text is actually for the people who they want to get to join their service. And then there is also, oh no, thank you, Nicole. I'm gonna focus it on this one then. Oh, okay. Oh, whew. All right, good. Thank you. Sorry. All right, much appreciated. Okay, I'll just focus it on this screen. Okay, good. I'll focus it on this screen, and then hopefully we're good. Okay, let's see. So yeah, and then the last thing they have is an option to search for a domain, because that's the other service that they offer. So you'll notice, again, website, literally hundreds of pages, but they have just made the decision for you. They want you to start a free trial or to log into your website, or to search for a domain. So they have made that decision for you, and I want you to do the same thing for your website. Much appreciated in the comments for all the help, people. Okay. And then example on my website, if you want something which maybe relates a little bit more, you're probably not software developers, most of you, I'm guessing. So this one maybe relates a little bit more to the type of business that you're running. So I have a work with me page, portfolio, about, and blog. And then Deets This Way takes you to my work with me page. So if you want an example of a tagline, by the way, this is, if I do say, it's kind of self-absorbed to say, but this is a good example. I say I'm a Squarespace web designer. I talk about how I'm different. I talk about who I help, and then I have a call to action. So yeah, it can be really quick and simple and to the point. So again, I have way more pages than this, and you'll find them in my footer, but these are the most important things that if someone lands on my website, that they really need. So those are the ones, the 4 that made it to the top, basically. So this one, I would love for you to share with me in the chat because it won't take too long. So I'd love to hear what your at maximum 5 things are that are going to be making it into the top navigation for you. And take a sip of water as you do that. Who's got the pages for me? Or are you all still deciding? Andre is having the home, services, portfolio, about, and contact. Ooh, this brings me to a really good point, which I should have mentioned, but did not mention. Home, gallery, about, contact, shop, says Barb. Wonderful. That makes a lot of sense. Larry, home, portfolio, about us, contact. Good. Yeah, Larry, look at you. You really whittled it down. Fantastic. Larry, is your information for your services on your about page? What is your service? I'm not sure. Patricia says home, why me? Good. Expertise, services, blog, resources, contact. Good. I'd love if you could take one out of there. Blog, resource, contact. What is your resource page, Patricia? Blog, work with me, contact, home. Okay, good. So one thing which most of you were mentioning is their homepage, and I want to actually clarify this. So you do not need to put your homepage in your top navigation, because the vast majority of people, because we're a pretty tech savvy bunch these days, unless you're serving like senior adults or something, most people know that clicking on your logo is going to bring you back to the homepage. So I would say you could actually take home out of that list for like all of you. I would definitely still put it in your footer navigation. Barb, I'm a senior adult. Okay. If you're serving senior adults, and that's your target audience, then maybe leave it in. But if you're targeting like millennials, you don't need to put it there, just so you know. Okay, perfect. Get off my nav bar. Okay, good. Let's do an example. So I am going to, my resources will be ebooks, papers, etc. Okay, cool. Good to know. I am going to switch over to Canva because I really want to quickly show you what the other option. So I showed you sort of like the super low tech pen and paper option, but I also want to show you the option for creating your roadmap if you are doing using Canva. So let me just switch my screen 1 second. Ta-da. Window. Okay. See if you can. Yeah. Okay, good. You can all see my screen, I'm pretty sure. So I am here on Canva. If you are unfamiliar with Canva, it's canva.com. It's basically free Photoshop, simpler Photoshop, really. So I created just go over to this page here. I just created, I think it was a poster, and I just created a blank one just because I wanted something that was a bit more vertical. And then let me do a blank one actually, add a new page, show you how I did this. First thing I did was I went to text, added a switch, come down here. Okay, perfect. Add my heading. So this page is going to be my home page. And so then I have again, the top of the page is the title of whatever that page is. Then below that, I have, do a little shape, kind of like sticky note, sort of. And going to put whatever content goes here, back to my text area. So the first thing we mentioned was our tagline and call to action. Clear this so you can actually see it. Good. Call to action. And then I should mention where this call to action goes to. So let's say our services page. And I can basically just copy these two things. Put it down here. This is our next, think of it like a sticky note. Next bit of content. What is it? Oh, cheat and go back up. Opt-in gift. Then, so basically in Canva, you're creating your roadmap. Your first page would say be your home page. Next page would be your services page. Then whatever follows that in your roadmap. And then you're always making sure that you have all the bits of content that go on the page, and you can, again, really easily move these around kind of like sticky notes. And then always finish off with a call to action. So, okay, good. Let me go back to my presentation. I hope that helped with the Canva thing. or pen and paper, Canva, whatever you feel works best for you. Okay, let me go back to sharing my presentation with you. I just have a couple more slides. There we are. Good. So awesome for teaching all this. Thank you. Oh, you're super welcome, Nicole. Happy to help anytime. Well, Nicole, you should definitely come join us next week then. So next week, I'm going into how to pick a Squarespace template. This one, I think, will knock your socks off. Yeah, this is something that so many people struggle with, and then they just never build their website because they can't pick a template, and they're in analysis paralysis of like, I have no idea, and I shouldn't start my trial if I don't know the template. So we are going to absolutely get you over that hurdle next week. So please come join me next week, actually at 2 p.m. Eastern on Wednesday. And we'll get all into picking a Squarespace template. And by the end, I hope that all of you in the comments mention and say what template you're using, because that is my goal, is to get every single one of you there by the end of the class. And then the class after that, we're going into a Squarespace lesson for beginners. So yeah, that one will be not slides, but sharing my screen and showing you how to do all the things. I'm going to go into like beginner level. Maybe down the road, I'll do a more advanced webinar with you. But for next week, we're going to go into like the beginner stuff for you. So yeah. Chelsea, oh, thanks, Chelsea. You make me feel good about myself. Okay, now don't be a stranger. I would love to see you again in the future. I am focusing a little bit on YouTube. So if you want to come visit me there, you can also subscribe, and I'll be posting lots more videos similar to this one on there. So I'd love if you come hang out with me there. Now, we're not done yet. I have a couple questions. Chelsea says, quick question. Chelsea, leave your question in the comments area below. Wonderful. Michael, great. Okay. Let me open up your questions. Second. Dun, dun, dun. Start answering. Ooh. Okay. Kay asked, in tagline, can you give an example of how you're different? Yes, I can. Okay. Oh, good. Can you give an example of how you're different? I'm going to give you my example of how I'm different. So most web designers do take on a whole bunch of different clients at the same time. And then it takes like 2 to 3 months to do a website, whereas I do just one client at a time, and I do a website in 2 weeks. And so it's a really quick turnaround, and my clients get my undivided attention, which is fabulous. So that is an example of how you're different. Now, of course, I can't, that's a pretty long explanation. So I just say like taking you from website dreaming to website launching in 2 weeks. And then I give the full explanation of that on the actual services page of how exactly that works and how I do a website in 2 weeks. Don't just smash it together while I'm doing like 7 other people's at the same time. So that's an example of how I'm different. I want to think of another example that's not me. If any of you have examples of how you're different, I'd love to hear it in the comments, actually. Let's say you are I don't know. Thinking of examples on the fly is always so difficult. Say you're an artist and you, oh, no, that's not different. I cannot think of another one off the top of my head. So I hope at least the one I gave you was helpful. Great question, Kay. I find differentiating factor, that's something that really takes time to figure out. When you first start your business, it is really difficult to know how you're different from other people. So yeah, a realtor trying hard to differentiate myself. Kayla, good one. Your differentiating factor could, in fact, be the type of people that you help serve. So say at the beginning, we tend to start by helping everyone. And then we realize that there's a certain type of people that we're especially like set up to help. Say you have a lot of experience with, just like yourself, being maybe a first-time home buyer. Maybe you just help first-time home buyers, or maybe you just help people who are buying a second home or getting a cottage or something. So those are some examples of differentiating factor. So the more different you can make yourself, you will absolutely turn people away. Something that makes me different, also, another thing, is that I only do Squarespace web design. A lot of different places do like WordPress and Wix and 97 other things, and I just do Squarespace. So that's something which can make you different as well, like what type of tools you're using to do whatever it is you do. So yeah. Ta-da. Let me see my other ones. Okay, Larry. Larry always has good ones for me. You always give me the challenging ones, Larry. Okay, Larry asked, how does the index page affect the traditional top bar footer navigation? Our new site has our pitch, services, a link to our portfolio, about the business, and a contact form, all on the home index page. How does one lead a prospect / client gracefully to the primary and secondary information and back again without cluttering up the top bar and footer navigation? I think from you saying this, that you're doing like one super long scrolling page instead of having multiple pages on your website. So I think the same principle still applies. So in your top navigation area, you would just put those most in. So instead of putting like, say you have, I don't know, 10 different sections to your index page and it's one long scrolling page, instead of having in the top 10 different options, just put the most important things, whatever you have determined is the most important, just put those up at the top there. So same thing goes if you're doing one long scrolling page or multiple pages on the site. So yeah, I hope that was helpful. Okay. Kay asked, what template am I using for my website? I'm using the Rally template, R-A-L-L-Y, and that is part of the Brine family, B-R-I-N-E. It is, and we will get into this next class, the best. Anything in the Brine family is fabulous and really is like way miles ahead of what all the other templates can accomplish in terms of like flexibility and different options. So that is a template that I'm using, and most of the time that's the one that I suggest. There's a few exceptions when it doesn't make sense, and I'll go into that next week. So yeah, I'm using the Rally template. Start answering. Andre, how long did it take you to reach the point where you can build a website in 2 weeks? Honestly, it is not as difficult as you think. If you only have one client, so most web designers have 4, 5, 6 clients at a time. And so if you think about it, you're just like, it takes them longer, but they're still working the same number of hours. So I know it sounds crazy, but I really encourage you when you're going to build your website, just like give yourself a long weekend. And I guarantee you, if you just sit down and work on it, like you can absolutely do it. So I think myself and other web designers spend the same amount of time, but I can just do it really quickly just because I do one person at a time. So I actually started from the very beginning doing it that way, which I know sounds crazy. The first website I ever did, I did it completely for free because I had no idea if I was going to be a decent web designer. And it was for a nonprofit, so it made sense to give them a free one for my first one. And I tested out the 2-week process with them because I was nervous at the very beginning, could I do it? But after having done that one, I knew it was definitely possible. So honestly, it's not as difficult as you think when you just have one client at a time. Oh, okay. Tara, good question. Tara asked, after you create a button, how do you link it to a page? So first thing you do is you add a button block, and then I have to do this from memory. Put in a button block, you click edit on the button block, then it will have a link area. You can either paste in a link, say you want to link it, this wouldn't be a call to action example. Say you wanted to link it to Facebook or something, then you would just you would take your Facebook URL, paste it in there. If you want to link to a page on your own website, however, there's a little tab and it says content. You're normally on external, but then you can click over to content, and then you can just select one of the pages within your website. And that's another way to link to pages within your own website. Oh, I lost my comment. Oh, where'd it go? Oh, there we go. Sorry. Done answering. Lena asked, do I outsource? I do not outsource anything. I do it all myself. Yeah, I do all the web design, all the branding, all those things. I do it myself. One day I would love to hire someone on to, you know, do my inbox and my social media. But in terms of like the actual work for my clients, I do it all. Missy, ooh, good question. I know Missy is thinking about being a web designer, I'm pretty sure. Paige, do clients ever question your authority since you're so young? Has this ever been a problem attracting clients, or is this actually an asset since millennials are generally more tech savvy? Out of curiosity, how old are you? Good question. I'm 26. And I've never had someone like outwardly question it. Maybe at some point someone has been like, strange. But I think exactly as you said, like say I was like a life coach or something, people might go, I don't know about that. But when you're a web designer, yeah, people who are younger tend to be more tech savvy. So I think people actually see that as a beneficial thing in a lot of ways. So yeah, great question. I honestly, Missy, don't worry too much about it. You do you. Go for it. If you want to be a web designer, go crazy. Dun, dun, dun. Chelsea asked, what do we do if we have no testimonials or awards? How can you sound convincing? Great question. Okay. You basically need to get some testimonials and like awards. In some industries, awards are very common, like say the wedding industry. I know there's like, just because I'm doing a wedding website or wedding venue website right now, it's on my brain. They have all those awards like the knot.com and Wedding Wire and all those things. But in a lot of other industries, it's not super common. So I wouldn't, if your industry doesn't tend to have a lot of awards, don't stress about it. If your industry does tend to have awards that are available, then get your work out there and apply, submit your work for those awards. In terms of no testimonials, I would suggest maybe doing work for a friend or family. Maybe not family if they have the same last name as you, because that wouldn't look good. But doing some work for someone who you know first, just start within your circle of contacts that you already have. And then do some work for them and make sure that you ask for the testimonial. And also in the future, like when you do start getting actual clients, or if you are already having actual clients now, make sure that you work it into your process, that they give you a testimonial. And even I've seen this before in a course that I took, there was like an extra bonus module that was locked until you gave a testimonial. So if you can find some way to like incentivize them giving testimonials as well. So work it into your process, make sure that it's like in your list of things that you do with every client, make sure you ask them for a testimonial. If you ask them like in person or face-to-face, that's even more effective than just like sending them an email. So say at the end of all my projects, I do like a live video lesson. And at the end of the lesson, I ask them to give me a testimonial, which really helps. So yeah. I hope that was helpful. So many. Liz, this is a good one. Okay. That's so awesome that you can do a website in 2 weeks. Thank you. But what do you do if your client is super slow to respond or provide feedback during that process and it throws you off your timeline? All right. I've devised a timeline which makes this impossible. And I have written about this on my blog. So I definitely welcome you to go read the posts about like how my process works. So all of my clients know that, and when I do the initial, I did a consult call today with someone, and I drive home from the very beginning that you need to have your content prepared before we go to build the website, because there's no way that we can get through this thing in 2 weeks if the content isn't ready beforehand. So one, like setting the expectation, like it needs to be there. If they don't have their content ready, and I've thankfully never run into this issue, but I would, if they have like nothing ready for their website design, then we would end up like picking them a later date and then they would lose their deposit. So that really lights a fire under people's butts to actually prepare their content on time. Then if they're super slow to respond or provide feedback, so there is no, I don't give a limit on the amount of edits someone can have on their website. I just, our deadline is that second Friday. So the faster they get back to me, the more edits they get. And so it really, it like, I don't know, again, lights the fire under the butt for them to actually get back to me. So yeah, it's thankfully not you. I actually really run. And the other thing thing which I have to say is I think the fact that, like, if you have to dedicate 3 months to constantly buy your email to, like, email back your web designer, it's just going to, like, fall down on the priority list. But for people, like, this is 2 weeks, this is what the online home of my business is getting built. It's super important. So they're on it for that time. So, okay. I have a few, sorry, we have hit our hour, so I have to leave you. Absolute pleasure hanging out with you. I'm so sorry about the time mix-up. You're Barb. I hope next week, definitely come back and join me. I encourage you. Larry, you're so welcome. Trisha, you're welcome too. Definitely come join me for the next one. So click on the face, check out the crowdcast that I have, and then we'll see you next week. Have a good day, everyone.